When I was sitting here recording my last video, celebrating becoming an American 1 year before, we, America, were lobbing missiles into Syria. It took about 76 days, I believe, for President Trump to start looking a lot more like every other president I can remember than he was, well, the day before. Foreign policy is very complicated. It is not my job, nor would I be arrogant enough, to tell you what you should think about what's going on in Syria or anywhere else in the world where things are highly complicated. But I do think we all as Americans have a right to demand from each other and from our leaders moral consistency. Now, if you are unleashing violence on someone or a group of people, you have to have a certainty regarding the good that you will do by it and the information on which you base the action that is good enough to warrant the harm you are initiating. You have to be so certain, beyond a reasonable doubt, that you are targeting the people or facilities or whatever that should be targeted. And you must be so certain, beyond a reasonable doubt, that you are going to save lives to an extent greater than any harm you may do, when all of the uncertainties that are in play whenever you get involved in something so complex as huge acts of violence, when all of those uncertainties come home to roost, as they always do. That's what moral consistency is. It's saying that the evidentiary basis for an action, especially if it is going to cause known harm, and especially if it is going to set off a train of events that are likely to cause harm that you cannot control. The evidentiary basis for such action must be solid enough to warrant it. I mean, think about it. What would it take you to justify killing one person outside in the street? You would have to be absolutely sure that you were saving at least one life, wouldn't you? And you'd have to be absolutely sure that there would be no other way to save that life. It is hard for me to understand where anybody can get that level of certainty about the situation in Syria. Either that this action's going to do any good rather than make things worse, or that the situation is as they believe it is. I have, like many other people I'm sure, been reading contradictory articles about the situation on the ground. I don't know what to believe. I'm no Syria expert. But if you are going to support political action that is likely to start a train of events that will kill people, you better be an expert. I live in Washington State. I don't even know what's best for my next door state of Oregon. I don't know what would happen if we got involved in Oregon from outside without much knowledge about the demographics, the conflicts, the issues in Oregon. Oregon, a democratic state with pretty much exactly the same culture as the place where I live. I don't even understand Oregon because I don't know it. Do you understand Syria? If you do, genuinely, write to me and explain to me the path, the causal path between what we've started doing there and the good that will be done with more certainty than is necessary to justify the action morally if a bunch of things that you can't predict go wrong. I would appreciate also some nod to history. Churchill said, study history, history, history. In history lie all the secrets of statecraft. Now, Churchill was a guy who was conducting a massive war, and he won it too. He was also the guy that said to George war is better than to war. So, if this action in Syria is the right thing to do, please show me how similar actions have had positive outcomes in the past, or if they haven't, why you know that this time it's different. Just be sure, please, if you're supporting things like this, that this isn't about making you feel better. You know, a kind of right-wing virtue signaling, perhaps. There's a thought, right? You're seeing a lot of that on the left. I am not a pacifist. I thank God that, for example, we eventually stood up to Hitler. But we played to win, the enemy was clear, and we were under threat. Oh yes, that's another small matter. The president, we have a constitution, I have it on my wall over here. The president has a legal right to conduct military operations. When we are immediately threatened, if that conflict isn't going to last for more than 60 days, clearly we were not under threat. Not directly. If you say that the Syria intervention is humanitarian, show me about the lives that it will save. If, however, you say it was a matter of American national interest, then that can be a justification. But then the burden is to explain why this interest is so great relative to others that that we deploy our forces here, that we take the risk here and not elsewhere in the world. And you have to explain how it is we get around this small niggle of the Constitution. You see, if there is a national interest here, or indeed if there is a great humanitarian interest, and the evidence is so solid, the evidence of the good that we'll do, and of the information on which we're basing our action, then if it's that solid, the president can bring it to the people, and the people, through their representatives, get a chance to agree. And then, since this will be done in our name, we get to say yay or nay, as per our constitution. That is our right. There may be some rights in Syria that are being violated by such actions. I'm okay with violating rights in general if it's to save my life. And if I'm violating the rights of people who would threaten me. As I say, I'm not a pacifist. There's a massive burden to show that. But there's also a burden here, a moral burden, to show why my right, as written up there in the Constitution, my right to be able to participate in a legitimate decision-making process when violence is going to be done in my name and is likely to have consequences that may be negative for me and my country. Blowback, they call it. Well, we know blowback's a real thing. This has been quite a long video. I would welcome your comments below. I really hope things get better. For Liberty with Love, this is Robin Koerner. If you found this video interesting, then please go ahead and like it,
Subscribe to my channel, Koerner, The Art of Political Persuasion, and maybe check out some of my other content like this video right here.